My name is Dan Wellman, and in this lesson we're going to take a look at the tabs widget. Like the accordion from the last lesson, the tabs widget is a simple widget used to organize a lot of content into a small area without cluttering the interface. This is a highly standardized widget on the web and has been in use for many years. It's been part of jQueryUI since its release, but of course it's changed a lot since then. The underlying markup required for the tabs widget is very simple, just like the accordion, and consists of a list of headings containing links and a series of container elements. Unlike with the accordion, however, with tabs we need to add ID attributes to each container and then add the IDs as the href attribute of the links and the headings. So let's put some markup together now. We start out with an outer container once again, and we'll give it an ID again so that we can select it easily. And first of all we want to add the list of headings, so this is just a simple unordered list. Each heading should consist of a h3 container with a link inside it. So there's the first one. We'll just have 3 again. Okay, and now we can add the tab panels. So these can just be divs, and remember we'll give each one an ID that matches one of the hrefs. And we'll just add the others, and then we just want to initialize that using the tabs init method. So we select the container and then we call the tabs method. So let's take a look in the browser. Okay, so here is the default presentation of the tabs. Click on one of the headings and it shows the panel. So very simple to use and very simple for us to create and configure. The appearance of the widget is controlled by the theme in use. So remember, by default, the theme we're given when we download the latest stable version of the library is called Smoothness, and it's a theme that's quite understated and neutral and built mostly from various shades of grey. So the tabs widget also has a range of options that can be used to configure the widget during initialization, or which can be modified after page load. These options are as follows: active, collapsible, disabled, event, height style, hide, and show. So let's think back to the accordion widget that we looked at in the last lesson. There are some similarities in the options, like the active option, which denotes which tab panel is visible. This is used in the same way as it was with the accordion, and we can set it at initialization time to change which tab is visible when the widget loads, or we can change it on the fly using the option method. And again, the collapsible option is the same as it was with the accordion. It controls whether one tab must be open at all times or whether all of the tabs can be hidden at once. Event is also the same and means which user event triggers the showing of a tab. So again, by default it's click, but we could change it to mouse over instead, which would then show the panel when the tab heading was hovered. Disabled is also the same as with the accordion. And this is another aspect of the common API. So all widgets have a disabled option and it works in the same way for all of them. The height style event, the height style option is the same as with the accordion as well. So when we set this to auto, the tabs will be a fixed height no matter how much content the open tab has in it, and its height is based on the tab panel that has the most content. If on the other hand it is set to content, then the tabs will grow and hide according to the content in the visible tab. And once more we can set it to fill if we wish, in which case the tabs will fill the total height of their container and ignore the height of the content in each panel. The hide and show options are interesting because at a glance it's not completely intuitive what they do, but once you know it makes perfect sense. So they're both related to animations. The show option controls the animation for when a tab is shown, and the hide option is for the animation for when a tab is hidden. They're both set to null by default and are totally independent, so we can set completely different animations for each state. So let's do that quickly now, except this time we'll use the option method so we can see how to set options after the widget has been initialized. So we won't use the configuration. What we'll need is a button again. We can use a simple button that will change the animation. And we can add a handler for this now. And we use jQuery's on method once again. And all we want to do is select the tabs widget. Remember, we still call the initialization method when we want to call another method. So we start out with tabs, and the method that we're going to call is option because we want to change one of the options. So this method does take some extra arguments. The next argument that we want to set is which option we'd like to change. So we can set the animation for the hide option. So we'll supply hide as the second argument. And then the third argument is the value that we'd like the option that we're changing to have. So we'll set that as the third argument. And this time we can use the effect explode. So remember, this will change the actual animation itself, not just the easing or the duration. So that should be all we need to do. Let's have a quick look at the page. So by default, there's no animations on either open or close. It just does it straight away. But if we click the button, we should find now, yep, the closing animation is explode. So the tab content kind of just explodes outwards. So that is how we set a configuration option after the widget has been initialized. And that's also how we use a method that accepts additional arguments. So for reference, the hide and the show options of the tabs widget are similar to the animate option of the accordion in that they can take different formats, including Boolean, string, number, or objects. Okay, so let's take a look at the methods that tabs has. So we have all of the common methods that all widgets share: destroy, disable, enable, option, refresh, and widget. They all work in the same way as they did for the accordion, and literally every single widget uses them in the same way. They really are all exactly the same, so I probably won't mention them again. Tabs does have one unique method, load, and that is used to reload the content of a remote tab. So a pretty cool feature of tabs is that you can have remote tabs. A remote tab is added by using the name of the file as the href instead of a simple ID. But the file that you're linking to should be on the same domain as the file that the widget is running on. So let's add another tab now, and this can be a remote tab. So we're going to use a different file as the href. So we need to add the file that we want to use. So let's just add a standard HTML page. We'll call this one remote. And we can just, I don't know, we'll just set some text here. And now we can use the file name as the href of the remote tab. So we set that to remote.html. So let's go back to the page. So we have our remote tab now. And one thing to bear in mind is that remote tabs are lazy because the remote file won't be loaded until the tab heading is clicked. But also you should bear in mind that remote tabs aren't cached. So every single time the tab is shown, the content will be reloaded. So that will result in another HTTP request. So just bear that in mind. So if we want to reload the tab content programmatically without the user having to change to another tab and then change back to the remote tab, we would do that using the load method. So let's just show the tab. So it will reload that content each time. So every time we click on the remote heading, it will update the content. So that's pretty cool. So if we, I don't know, change something and then go back to the page. So we won't reload the page, but we will reload the tab. And as you can see, the new content has come in. So if this happens to be a file or a web service that returns data that updates, pretty frequently, we might not want to wait for the user to keep clicking on the tab heading. This could be the first panel of the tabs, and we might want it to update itself. So let's just update that again. Oh, actually, we won't update that yet because we'll need to reload the page in a moment. Hang on. Right. Okay. So yeah, let's add the load method first. So we'll need another button actually for this. So the button will reload this. We could set it on a timer, just using set interval so that it just, checked for new content at a specified interval of time. But we'll just use a button here because it's easier. And we'll need another click handler down here. So we'll just add that now quickly. And what we want to do is select the tabs widget. And then we call the initialization method again, remember? But we pass the name of the method that we like to call as the first argument. So in this case, it's the load method. And there is one more argument that we need to specify, and that is the tab that we'd like to reload. So this is our remote tab is the 4th tab heading. So these are 0 based as well. So we set this to number 3, and that will reload our remote tab whenever the button is clicked. So let's reload the page first of all. So there's our new button. So we've got the content as it was when it was last saved. So now let's add some more. So we'll save that, but we won't reload the page and we won't change the tabs, but we'll click the reload button and the new content is loaded. So super simple to use. Before we close up for today, let's just have a quick look at the events API for tabs, which consists of the following events: activate, before load, create, and load. So as you can see, there are some similarities with the accordion widget that we looked at in the last lesson. The activate event, the before activate, and the create events are all the same. So they work in the same way and they're used in the same way. And as well as these, we also have the load and before load events, which are fired directly before and directly after the load method is used. So in this part, we looked at the tabs widget, including the configuration options, the methods, and the events. But again, we didn't really have time to cover all of these things in detail, but I hope that I've shown you enough so that you can go away now and kind of play around with the tabs widget yourself and use the different API things yourself, without too much concern. So before the next lesson, why don't you go off and do that? And then when we come back, we can take a look at the button widget.